Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the definitive debate. My name is Mark Snyder, and next to me is Jeff Pickett from SMAC. We're going to be doing this debate together, and this is for the school committee. We have two candidates that are here today, the incumbent, Dr. Erdem Ural, as well as the challenger, Molly Cochran. And we are going to be doing this in the next hour. And just for your own edification, so you know what's going on, we have no opening statements in this particular.
No, we do.
Actually, we do. Okay, I'm in the wrong one here. It's a good start.
We have a 60-second opening statement for the school committee for each candidate.
I was reading the selectmen thing, and that's coming up at 7:45, by the way, if you're watching, so you might want to wait for that. So we have a minute each for the introductory statements. Also at the end, they'll have a minute to wrap things up. Each response will be 60 seconds to Jeff's questions, and there will be a chance for rebuttal of up to 60 seconds for that. So I just want to let everybody know the parameters. And since we never actually did a flip for the seats, but Erdem got the first seat here. So Erdem, you'll start out with the statements, and then Molly will have her turn after that.
Good evening, Mark, Jeff. Good evening, Stoughton. Hello, Molly. It's a great pleasure to have this opportunity to speak to you. My name is Erdem Ural. People call me Doc because I earned a doctorate degree in aerospace engineering from the University of Michigan. I have a child attending the middle school and another at Hanson School. I own and operate a well-known scientific consulting business in Stoughton. I am a proud member of the Stoughton Chamber of Commerce. We all want to improve our town's economy. We would like companies with high-paying jobs and new families move to our town. Having great schools is a must towards achieving these goals. We made great strides during this 6 years I have been serving on the school committee. We improved the level rating of our schools. Planning of our new high school project is well underway. This year, while I was serving as the committee chair, we introduced unprecedented initiatives to...
Sorry.
Okay.
Molly?
Thank you. My name is Molly Cochran. I'm an attorney, but I'm running for school committee because I am a mother. I have children in Stoughton schools. They've been there since kindergarten, and they are now at the high school. Their education and development has been my primary focus for over 15 years, and it's been a learning experience. I like to take what I've gained from that experience and translate that into providing guidance to the school committee to help every child get a good education. I'm not running because I have all the answers, but because I have a much different philosophy from my opponent. My focus would be on working constructively to make things better, earning trust and respect, building consensus, pulling together, and not creating divisions. Dr. Ural, where he sees a culture of complacency, which I think is insulting to the teachers and the students, I see a culture of achievement and very hardworking students and teachers. We need to make sure, too, that the Massachusetts School Building Authority trusts this school committee before it commits to putting millions of dollars into our town to build or renovate the high school. If we lose that opportunity, the high school may lose its accreditation. Thank you.
Thank you. So question number one will go to Molly from Jeff.
All right, and again, just to reiterate, the candidates will have 60 seconds each to answer these questions, and there will be a rebuttal period available afterwards. So the first question, Molly, is to assess the leadership of the school department, the administration specifically, and the school committee itself.
Those are obviously two different questions in one. So with respect to the leadership of the school department, I think we have had stability. I think we are on a solid footing and have been on a solid footing. I think there are lots of different ways to, obviously lots of different measures and statistics to look at the performance of the schools, but probably most telling is the fact that we have achieved for the first time 4 level 1 schools and 3 level 2 schools. And I think that is based on very serious assessment that DESC does. I think that the school administration, Mr. Ford and Dr. Rizzi, do conduct themselves with professionalism and fully answer questions in the school committee meetings. And so I think that they are providing the needed transparency. The school committee itself is a matter of great concern, especially during the last year since Dr. Ural has become the chairman of the committee. I've seen a lack of cooperation with the administration, a lack of actually adopting and implementing policies, which is one of the primary functions of the school committee, a lot of divisiveness and tension. Thank you.
Erdem?
The school committee, I think it's been better than ever, because in the past, everybody had the feeling that they had to agree with the superintendent, make the schools look good. This time, this year, we have implemented new initiatives for achieving transparency, communications, and accountability. We now publish member packets on the internet before the meeting. That was unprecedented. We now hold office hours for parents, employees, and residents. We now have meaningful dialogue with the Special Education Parent Advisory Council, and affirmative school committee vote, and the chairman's signature for approval is no longer a rubber stamp. So no more rainbows and lollipops.
Do you have any rebuttal on that?
I will agree there's absolutely no more rainbows and lollipops. Thank you very much for clarifying that. I think there's been a lot of tension and conflict and undermining. I absolutely do not believe there should ever be a rubber stamp for the administration. The job of the school committee is to monitor, they have an oversight role, they need to make sure that the budgetary decisions make sense, they need to make sure that there are performance goals and those goals are being met. I think it was curious that in the most recent mid-cycle review, which we just saw in the recent school committee meeting, that Dr. Rizzi apparently did meet all her performance goals, but Dr. Ural could not acknowledge that fact, but instead said, well, I don't agree with what the goals were after the fact. So again, it's this continued sense of opposition without a reasoned basis. Opposition is appropriate sometimes, but it should be for a reason and for by the exercise of good judgment and in the best interest of the students and the families.
Did you have a rebuttal?
Yes,
as well?
sure. Ms. Cochran is misrepresenting the facts. Anybody who wants to watch the school committee, I'm sure it will be online pretty soon, and they can see for themselves how she is misrepresenting the facts. The issue I had was the goals she took were, she said she was going to do it, but it turned out the most 4 out of the 4 goals were accomplished before the school committee agreed to those goals. So in my book, working in the industry, that's never done. Why would you take something that you have already done and next year say, okay, these are my goals. Oh, by the way, I did it. So that was the issue.
Well, it does seem as kind of a follow-up that evaluations are a regular item on the school committee agenda. And it seems like they pop up almost every meeting. What is your take on the evaluation process with the superintendent? What should it be? And what can you do to make it a more regular process? Because it doesn't seem like there are regular, you can't predict when there's going to be an evaluation. It doesn't seem like over the past several years we have a pattern of when there will be evaluations. So if you could just kind of speak to that.
Who
We'll
are
have
you
Erdem
asking
do that
to?
first. Go ahead.
Erdem,
Okay.
you first.
The evaluation is done annually, and then the salary increase or the improvement plan for the superintendent is done after the evaluation. This year, the school committee, 3 members out of the 5 school committee members decided to give the superintendent a raise above and beyond that was provided in her contract. And then they said, well, let's do the evaluation afterwards. And then, so evaluation is a very important part. You set the goals, the employee works through the goals, and then you see, and that's a learning process for both the school committee and the superintendent or the employee. And in the process, you improve. So picking something that you already done is ridiculous. I mean, you don't learn anything from that process.
If I could just comment on that, I mean, wasn't Dr. Ural a member of the committee at the time those goals were set? So now to say after the fact that those weren't the right goals for us to be setting anyways, I guess I'm confused at the process seems to have, I'm confused at the process and your take on the process.
Well, should I explain?
Go ahead.
Okay. The process is outlined by the Massachusetts Association of School, Department of Education. So when we set the goals, I brought those two issues. I said, these are the goals. Have you done these goals? He said, no. And then, are they going to be addressing the needs of the district students? Yes. So after she submitted the material, I look at the dates. They are end of 2014 fiscal year, which is like a June. So I said, well, at least write me a cover memo saying that, what did you do within the evaluation period and how they were related to the immediate needs of the district students. And I got a memo, but it was unresponsive.
I can only comment that, again, we're following a pattern here where I believe the 3 members of the school committee did feel that the goals were met and didn't have any problem or issue with that, and that there was actually no evidence submitted to suggest the goals weren't met. But Dr. Ural and Mr. Soares, again, this is a pattern of continuous, shall we say, opposition and resistance and a difficulty in working with the administration. So it was predictable, quite frankly, very predictable that is how he would vote on or respond to the evaluation. That it was not to be expected that he would ever give the superintendent a positive evaluation on anything. And historically, apparently, he has never done that.
That is a pattern of doing the job that the school committee members are elected to do. We don't have to agree on everything and discuss our differences. We have to do it in a public meeting. So I don't understand why Ms. Cochran is taking a point and particularly attacking me and Mr. Soares.
Do you want to respond to that?
Not attacking you, but I'm just pointing out, I think that is a very important part, obviously, of the school committee, is to select the superintendent and to evaluate the superintendent, and there is a very detailed and formalized process for that. My concern is that I didn't see reasoned, at least that was not explained to the public who was watching the school committee meeting, I did not see reasoned grounds for disagreeing that Dr. Rizzi had met the evaluation guidelines. That being said, this campaign and my reason for running is not about Dr. Rizzi. It's about, could we improve the composition of the school committee?
It sounds like it's about Dr. Ural because all the attacks are going to Dr. Ural. And please don't, she's mischaracterizing. So anybody who's interested on this topic, please go to the original source. I mean, as attorney, Ms. Cochran should also go to the original source and see what transpired at the meeting.
That's certainly this topic has been discussed at the previous debates, and another topic that comes up at the debates is the role of the school committee, and there seems to be not exactly seeing eye to eye on that. So I'd like you to, for the next question, to really discuss what you feel is the role of the school committee and how that can, the best suited role for the school committee to be most effective for the Stoughton Public Schools.
And Molly, you're first on this one.
Thank you very much. And that's a very important question. To begin with, the role of the school committee is to represent the public interest, represent the interest of the towns, and most specifically, the families and the students. It's certainly not to represent what the administration always wants. So it is to be sort of that third balance in the balance of power between the teachers and the teachers union and the administration, and again, the town and the public interest. So that's the role of the school committee. The school committee and I have reviewed the Massachusetts Association of School Committee training materials. The role of the school committee, or the ideal school committee, works in partnership with and mutual understanding and following and trying to achieve mutual goals with the administration. That requires good communication skills, that requires being open-minded, that requires, of course, learning the issues, and sometimes it absolutely requires disagreeing with the recommendation by the school committee or trying to push them in a different direction. And I'm certainly open to that. I think that's important to keep an open mind and to not vote in lockstep with anybody else and to not always assume that what the superintendent recommends is correct.
Erdem?
The role of the school committee is essentially threefold. One is to hire, fire, evaluate the superintendent, namely be the supervisor or the boss of the superintendent collectively. Number two is making policies for the district. And number three is the budget, to make sure that we come up with a budget that will support the educational goals of the system, and also that you are following the budget. So this year was the first time we had to take a school committee vote to have at least monthly reports on the budget, where we are with respect to what is budgeted, how much we spent. In other districts, it's just a nature of business. You know, they just keep giving the people the budget progress reports.
Can I report that? I would like to say, to follow up on your general question and then respond to something that Dr. Ural said. I've spoken to a lot of people in the administration and at the lower levels of the administration on the principal level, and I've asked what are they looking for from a school committee to be a productive part of the educational mission. They're looking for support and they're looking for respect, and I think those two things, especially the respect, have been sadly lacking. We can have a reasoned disagreement with somebody else on the committee or in the administration, but the respect and the listening has to be there. And secondly, with respect to the issue of the budget and getting monthly reports, I'm all for monthly reports on the budget. I think, though, that school committee members have to be cautious of not interfering or overstepping their bounds to the extent that they make it harder for the administration to do their job. And in that regard, I point particularly to Dr. Ural's interaction with the business manager, which I think was very conflicted and posed a lot of stress. And in fact, that's referenced by Mr. Hartman, actually refused Dr. Ural the right to meet with the town auditor because of the way he had treated the school business manager. And that's a serious concern.
Ms. Cochran is misrepresenting again the issue with the business manager. The previous business manager is, that was, there was something wrong about the recruitment process, and the issue with Mr. Hartman is that, about the cost of the teacher's contract. They came up with some figures, and I challenged that, and then they shut down. They didn't want to give it. And if you look at the budget this year, they were saying the cost of the steps were going to be $720,000. And then other group was saying $400-something thousand. So if you look at this year's budget, they were wrong. The previous business manager was wrong. Mr. Hartman's own internal auditor was wrong. So the important thing is having accountability and having the right figures, because that's certainly within the domain of the school committee. And school committee is the person that hires the business manager.
Can I respond very quickly
want to respond to that?
I have this chairman of the school committee telling the public that the business manager is wrong, doesn't know how to do the math, and that the town auditor is wrong and doesn't know how to do the math. Now, the budget is very important. The school committee does have an outside auditor, and that's important for that person to do their job and for the school committee members to be apprised. But to go in and interfere and suggest that you can do the math better, I would be shocked if that's actually a true statement, and that you can do the math better, and all these other individuals who are professionals in that role, that's their full-time job, that you can come in and do a better and different job than they can do, and that you feel that it's appropriate for you to step into those roles. That's why I think you make it difficult for people to work with you. Across the board, the business manager, the superintendent, and I have to add legal counsel as well. When Dr. Ural became chairman of the school committee a year ago, legal counsel withdrew from representing the school committee. I'll tell you as an attorney, that's almost unprecedented for a law firm to fire a client, in fact. And I think it's because of issues of difficulty and overreaching.
Ms. Cochran doesn't have all her facts straight, and I'm surprised she's making misrepresentations here. The numbers speak for themselves. You know, if you look at this year's budget, there is an estimate in their settlement of the teacher's contract. It's $400,000-something thousand. If you look at the memos issued by the former business manager and the town auditor, they were $720,000. So the facts are right in front of you, ma'am. Regarding the school committee lawyer, she left us because Dr. Rizzi told the school committee that we shouldn't pay the steps for the teachers. The steps for the teachers was required to be paid, and we ended up getting a lawsuit for $1.5 million. And then we settled the teacher's contract, and we made the lawsuit go away.
Do you have one last thing you want to say?
My comment is that legal counsel, Murphy, Hesse, the law firm, is a very prominent, very well-known law firm in education law, very qualified. It's unfortunate that they felt that they had to withdraw after Dr. Earl became chairman.
Okay, I'm going to, this is the part of the debate that I think a lot of people really enjoy the most. And that is when you ask questions of each other. And question number, the next question will be, Erdem will ask first. This is you asking the question directly to Molly. And then after that, Molly will ask to you, but you can also answer your own question as well.
And it can't be, what do you think of Mark's haircut?
Okay,
That's it.
off base,
And by the way, what do you think of Mark's haircut?
looking great.
Is that the part of the debate? Oh, you just made it part of the debate.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead, Erdem.
Molly, many attorney residents of our town served honorably on Stoughton boards and committees. This is because attorneys are considered to be of the officers of the court, and most act accordingly while volunteering for town government. So far, in my opinion, you have been different, because part of your campaign involved misrepresentation of material facts and law. Why do you believe you could lower your professional standards for the conduct of public service?
Oh, Dr. Earl, I actually have tried very, very hard to learn all the facts and to relay them with accuracy to the public, who is entitled to know what has been going on with the school committee under your chairmanship, and whether, quite frankly, you're good for the school committee or whether you're a hindrance to the school committee. I have been very careful about the facts. I have done my research. I have done my homework. I have talked to a vast number of people, a number of people who are in the know concerning this information. And I would like you, if you're going to accuse me, an attorney, of actually lying in public with respect to my campaign, I would like you to pinpoint what specific things that I've allegedly lied about.
Well, you, last meeting you mentioned, I didn't say lying, I said misrepresenting. The town.
You're splitting hairs now. Okay, I don't really know. You're
well,
splitting hairs.
As an attorney, you are trained to, argue both sides of the point with equal conviction. But the point is, you made the town meeting approve the Unit B positions, and therefore the school committee had to honor that. So I don't know if you checked the law. How do you know that to be true?
Okay, I wasn't trying to make a statement of law. I was trying to express factually what had happened with those. I wasn't trying to make a statement of law.
Well, that sounded like statement of law, and we will revisit that later. And then you in your penny saver ad, you said Dr. Ural voted against the schools, and then now he wants the schools. So which one is right? Again, I think that was misrepresentation because I told you I voted against it because that was premature, and you misquoted.
That's a vote against it, is it not, Dr. Ural? I simply said that at the town meeting in 2012, you were one of very few people who voted against the feasibility study for the new high school. In our last debate, you berated me at length for repeating that fact, and then admitted that it was true and that in fact you did vote against the feasibility study because you thought it was premature. Why don't you just admit the truth, what your vote was? It's a matter of public record.
My vote is on TV, you can watch it. I said it was premature because the SOI, the statement of interest, was not fully vetted. That was in 2012, and we did not. I said we should do this in 2013, and in fact we didn't get the approval from MSBA until 2014. And then you went on and gave an ad in the penny saver to that effect. As you mentioned, I berated you. I never berate. But I pointed out that was an inaccurate statement.
I don't think you have a very sensitive sense of how you treat other people then, Dr. Ural, because what you said to me after I told the truth in the community forum as to what your vote was, not the reasoning for your vote, and it's fair game for you to explain the reasoning for your vote, but you basically told me that I was lying, and as an officer of the court, it was inappropriate for me to do that. You should have admitted the truth, that that was your vote, and you're free to explain your reasoning. I have no problem with that, but to berate me and suggest, as you once again did here, that I'm misrepresenting the facts.
Yes, you did.
And Okay, I still, there's a disconnect. If I told the truth about your public record vote, why am I misrepresenting the facts?
Because you're not giving the whole truth, but you're just
I don't
giving
know
a
what
part
your
of it
reasoning
out
was.
of context.
I
Well,
don't-
you should have checked. I mean, it's available on videotape.
Okay, with the next, I should remind folks out there watching that the questions that are being asked to each other now, we have not seen, Jeff and I. These are, so it's kind of
And
we're
like Mr.
entertained as
Feaster
well.
says, we haven't seen your questions
Hey,
either.
We're entertained.
Erdem, no,
All right,
that was
and
uncalled for.
Molly?
Yes, thank you.
Your turn.
I have a question. Dr. Earl, you claim that you have supported transparency on the school committee, yet you've been intercepting and withholding board draft meeting minutes and not disseminating to the school committee correspondence from legal counsel, the Attorney General, and Secretary of State. My question is, why are you doing this, and do you believe that you have greater powers and authority than the other school committee members because you're the chairman, and on what basis would you derive that greater authority?
Again, I don't know where you got this information from, but there was a school committee meeting last night. Was it last night? Night before. If you watch the school committee meeting, at the end there was an explanation from the school committee meeting, school committee attorney regarding the Barbara Anzovino's claim. Why it wasn't done. It wasn't. It was put on hold by the request of Dr. Rizzi's lawyer, school committee lawyer, and the Massachusetts Association of School Committees Lawyers. Regarding the meeting minutes, we have been doing it very fast, but Ms. Shea, who's been doing the minutes, and she was very good, decided not to come to evening meetings, and we hired somebody new, and it takes a lot of work for her work to, she's in the training period.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, Molly.
I understand there's a new recording secretary, but my understanding is that the standard practice would be that for every meeting, the draft minutes would be presented to all the school committee members for the following meeting. And instead, you're intercepting those, you're slowing down the process, and there's been month after month where those school committee packets do not have draft meeting minutes. So there's been a gap between mid-October and I believe mid-February where there were no school meeting minutes. That's how slow and bogged down the process has been, because Dr. Ural is exercising, I would say, undue control and interference and delivering those to the other school committee members so they can look at it in a timely manner when they remember what happened 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Ms. Cochran is not misrepresenting again. She's misrepresenting again because it was really rare that you would get the draft minutes the next meeting, because by the time the recording secretary gets the minutes to us is maybe a month or 2 months later. And then it's true, I never had the time because, and our regular school committee secretary doesn't come to the meetings. So, I need to sit down and go over the minutes, make sure that, the names and the other stuff are spelled correctly. And it takes time, but any member who asks for the minutes could get them. Any member of the public, in fact, it's the law. If somebody makes a public records request, they get the minutes, even if they are in the draft form. All you do is stamp draft form.
I'm trying to understand why you would unilaterally, before releasing them to other school committee members, be going over the minutes and looking for typos or name misspelling. I don't understand. Why isn't that something that should be given simultaneously to all the school committee members? And so it sounds like you're no longer blaming the new recording secretary. You're admitting they have been sort of stopped at your desk, and you're withholding them because you want to review them first before anybody else gets a chance to review them. And I guess I just don't think that's fair, and I don't think that's authorized by your role as chairman.
I think you're incorrect. I do. It is part of it is true because I haven't been able to go over them in my office because I also have a business to run. But as I said, any member of the committee can get it, and any member of the public can get it, even if they are not approved. The purpose of just having one member go over the minutes is because I don't know if you worked on a board before. So if everybody has corrections, then it takes forever to get it corrected. So it makes sense for one person to go over it, obvious mistakes, and then the board can review and vote. And in fact, I have been distributing both the minutes that come from the secretary as well as the minutes that I have modified.
Okay, next question is from Jeff. And this one's going to go to Erwin.
All right, we'll return later in the debate to a couple more questions.
Yes,
from
we will
the
have more
candidates.
questions,
Yes.
absolutely.
But as for me, next question, I'd like to talk about the budget. And the budget for the last several years in the Stoughton Public Schools has gone up around 5% or so. And do you feel that this is sustainable? And what approach would you like to take in crafting the budget each year?
Who's it coming to?
Erdem, you're first.
It is kind of hard to do. This year it was, the budget proposal from the superintendent was 4.9%. And as a school committee member and also as a person who has children in the school, I like the biggest possible budget. But then, we have to be also fiscally responsible. So what I have done is took that number and went to Mike Hartman, the town manager. And I said, Mike, the superintendent is proposing this. We don't want to have another fight with the town hall. Is this something we can do? And he said, oh yeah, that's we have a lot of revenue expectation. He said only $300,000 of this is in question, and we think that's going to come through too. Time up.
Molly?
Sure. Obviously, the budget, managing the budget, dealing with budget questions is one of the most difficult and challenging things for the school committee to face and for the school committee to make decisions on. I would say my general tendency as a parent and as somebody who believes in the importance of education to the community and meeting all the needs of all students from various backgrounds with various challenges, I want there to be a healthy school budget. I want us to make sure we are covering all our bases and helping our students achieve the best that we can. That being said, we will bump up into reality from time to time. It's going to depend on the overall economy in the town, the tax revenues from other sources, et cetera, et cetera. So, and we don't want to end up in obviously conflict with the town over perhaps overreaching or denying some basic town services. So while I would say I definitely want to be an advocate for the students and the families, certainly I have to bear in mind that there's a rule of reasonableness around it as we're only a portion, we're only a slice of the pie. The pie is only so big, and so that we have to be reasonable. We have to learn to compromise, quite frankly, from time to time. Thank you.
I won't rebut it, but I'll just add to it that we have been fortunate for the last several years that we were able to get a good budget.
Okay.
Well, in terms of supporting the budget, do you feel that the budget, I just specifically not to individualize a question, but you didn't vote for this particular budget. So is that still something that?
Well, see, I right now I'm wearing two hats.
Mm-hmm.
One is as a school committee member, I have to do my due diligence, and I felt that I couldn't, and there were some issues at the in the budget itself. But as the school committee chair, the committee voted 3-2 to support the budget. So my role from now on is, try to promote the budget and get the funding for the budget.
Can I comment on that? I would just like to comment that Dr. Ural mentioned again that he actually did not vote for this year's budget
Jeff did, not me.
Coming up. And he felt that he couldn't. He said there were some issues in the budget itself. And I'm curious to hear what the reasoning is today about the reason he voted against the budget, which is unusual for a school committee chairman to do, without some reasons. There was one reason that was given at the community forum. I'm sorry, I strike that one. The Jeff Pickett candidate profile. Dr. Ural gave one reason. When we were at the town hall debate on Monday, I heard a second reason. So I'm curious as to what his current statement is of his reason for voting against the budget.
Ms. Cochran is playing with the words. Again, I refer the people to the original meeting videos, because when you take in the debates, you have 30 seconds or 1 minute or to respond. You just present one part of the argument. I mean, that's her character, confrontational. What she's saying is, in one meeting I used one part of the argument, and in the other meeting I used in the other part of the argument. therefore I must be lying. Ridiculous. So watch the original video and make up your mind.
I do. I want
hang
to.
on.
I want to.
Molly, do you want to
I
respond
would
to
just
that?
like to say, you've sort of skirted the question. I'm asking again what your reason was, and if you're saying there are two different reasons and only two reasons, and you stated one reason in the candidate profile and the second reason Monday night at the town hall debate, that's fine. If you're saying there were actually 6 or 7 reasons, if there's a different way you want to phrase your reasons, I think the public would like to know your reasons for voting down the budget.
Want me to answer?
You go ahead, yeah.
Well, there was several reasons, as I said, and they are in the budget has been discussed during several meetings during the school committee meeting. I had a few issues. One was I wanted the department managers to come and present the budget, because that's what we have been doing in the previous, when I first joined the school committee meeting. So that's what I asked the superintendent. And superintendent said, no, we never did that. And then I went ahead, found from the old minutes that in fact we did have the principles, and I showed it to superintendent at the next school committee meeting, and she just laughed at me. So that's one issue. I mean, we have the same issue with the town budget. A lot of people are upset with the new budget process, and they want to have the, again, information from the original source. The other one was the pay raises for the administrators. You have contracts, and the contracts are still ongoing. Why would you give more pay raises than provided in the contracts?
Okay, thank you. And Jeff, this is, next question goes to Molly first.
So going on to the topic of school buildings, of course Stoughton High School gets the predominant amount of attention and coverage, and because it's moving along in the MSBA's pipeline and to potentially replace the building. But I'd like to frame this question as to cover all school buildings here, because Stoughton's newest school building is about 50 years old. So how do you account for the condition of all of Stoughton's aging school buildings, and what's your realistic plan of action given that there are 5 elementary schools, a high school, a middle school, and an early childhood center to take care of?
That's a great question. And I would say my realistic plan of action is that certainly it needs to be investigated with some professional assistance as to, you know, what are the schools that sort of go to the top of the list as far as triage with respect to safety and just ability to meet the functions of the school. What are the schools that, and you can't just judge, quite frankly, by the age necessarily or by what the building looks like from the outside. I think you have to look at maintenance costs. I think that's been an issue with the South School in particular. You have to look at, you know, energy savings or energy being wasted. So it is a complex thing, and it certainly requires some engineering assessment as well as to, you know, what schools are going to be okay for the next 5 or 10 or 15 years, and what schools are going to go from dire need to worst need to worst need. And we obviously know that the high school is at the top of that list. We certainly don't want any of our schools losing accreditation. We certainly don't want roof collapses at any of our schools. We certainly want to take a look at the maintenance costs and the energy costs for our schools, and it may be that, you know, there can be some updating to without rebuilding with respect to that.
Erdem?
Well, we actually do have a master plan that outlines which school is the highest in the most dire need, and then what is the next one. One thing we haven't done, but and it's not a popular thing to talk about, and people are attached to these, but our student population has been in decline. So the schools were sort of designed when we had the peak in population. So it's going to be tough, but we need to look at, do we really need 5 elementary schools and an early childhood center, or can we do with less? But there is, as far as the, building new school buildings, we do have a master plan that addresses those.
Okay. Any rebuttals to that?
No.
No? Okay. Well, this next one is for Erdem.
See, I'm not always confrontational.
I'd like to, for the next 2 questions, I'd like to touch upon some current topics that seem to be making the rounds right now in the news. And the first would be the PARCC exam, and that's being given this week in the Stoughton Public Schools. And the exam has been met with some controversy, especially if you read social media postings, on the Stoughton pages. I'd just like to hear your thoughts on PARCC and the Common Core initiative behind this itself, and its relation to Stoughton.
And Erdem, you're first on this one.
Okay. Well, I have as I said, I have a kid in middle school and another one in third grade, and he was really nervous about taking the park exam. In fact, he took it today for the first time. I said, "Why are you nervous? You shouldn't be nervous about it. It's the teachers and the principals and the administration that should be nervous about the exam." In general, there are so many evaluations to students. They do like little exam throughout the day, and sometimes you wonder, how much learning goes in there. The school committee voted actually unanimous. Or maybe Katie was the only one who voted against switching from MCAS to Park. And then later, I realized that I made a mistake, and I contacted the Department of Education. Said, "Can we take a revote?" Because we have taken revotes in the past, and they told me that we couldn't. It was too late.
Molly?
Thank you. Well, certainly this is a difficult transition time. If it is a transition, a permanent transition to the park versus MCAS, I think it does cause a lot of stress and strain. I think the fact that the park is not unlimited in time the way the MCAS was perhaps puts more stress and strain and anxiety on the students. I think it is an experimental time, and I think time will tell whether it's really, the point is to be an accurate measure of whether we're actually teaching our children and whether we're being effective teachers of the children. I don't think until the results come in, maybe till the results come in for a couple of years, can we determine whether this is a more effective tool than MCAS. Some people, I'm sure, feel MCAS are generally working and they're a reliable measure, and I'm sure some people feel that they add strain, they require or end up with too much teaching to the test. You'll probably have the same issue with the park, and now that the different test is being taught too. So I think there's frustration on all sides with testing, and perhaps with too much testing, and what does the testing actually show, what does it achieve, and is it just too driven to the test?
Thanks.
Can I just add to it, not to rebut it?
No, actually, we'll go right to the next question because we're
Oh,
getting tight here in time.
We're getting.
Go ahead, Jeff. This one is to Molly.
All right, again, another topic of current interest is that from the last school committee meeting, which was Tuesday, March 24th, the Stoughton Teachers Association, during the public comment period, spoke about the contract extension of the deputy superintendent, and I just was wondering if you saw merit in the STA's concern regarding the contract extension of the deputy superintendent and the business relationship with the superintendent that he has outside of the school department. And should the school committee have at least been made aware of the fact that an extension had been given and that there was an outside business relationship?
That's actually a very long issue to go into, but I'll do my best to address that because there are multiple parts to that. I do think the school committee should have been made aware. It's always better to provide more information than less information with an oversight board. I do believe that in the Stoughton Teachers Association, of course, is in a position where it can bring up any issue that it believes actually might affect the education of the children, if it makes that connection. I think on the one hand, it's interesting that Dr. Rizzi's Level 1 Associates and her partnership in that with Mr. Ford was made utterly transparent because it was just put on the internet for anybody to see. So in a sense, there was no intention, I believe, on their part to keep this in the shadows or to have something on the side that nobody knew about, which is not the same thing as a formal announcement. I do believe that it raises, potential conflict of issues, interest issues if and when it should become an actual incorporated money-making business, which I don't believe that it is right now, but ultimately you wouldn't necessarily want to have those relationships. I'm sorry, it's a very complex issue to discuss.
It is. Go ahead, Erno.
Well, the superintendent is responsible for the contract of the assistant superintendent, so I don't think there is an issue there. But I had, personally, I had some issues that I didn't voice at the school committee meeting. One is superintendent's contract ends at 2017, and the assistant superintendent's contracts at 2020. And that may bring up some concern whether if the superintendent leaves to retire, is it possible that the assistant superintendent give her some consulting business? The other part I had problem with is, there's pretty much standard terms and conditions in the contract, and the new contract for Mr. Ford have given generous modifications to that. Again, that affects the school committee policy and the budget, and for that, it would have been better to discuss it with the school committee.
Okay. Does anybody
If
wanna-
I could just respond, and I haven't seen Mr. Ford's extended contract. My understanding was that it was a 2.5% per year raise. I think one could look at this in multiple ways. One way would be that it does provide a measure of stability. If Dr. Rizzi should leave, whether it's sooner, before her contract ends, or in 2017, if you have somebody she used to work closely in partnership with and actually achieving 4 level 1 schools, that does provide, I think, a helpful measure of stability to the school system, which I think is a comfort level, especially, quite frankly, as a parent now, when Dr. Rizzi might even be leaving sooner rather than later. I feel good that there will be some stability. But I think, quite frankly, with respect to entering into contracts, I think obviously that should always be reviewed by legal counsel and make sure that it makes sense. I don't necessarily see a conflict between him being continued deputy superintendent and entering into a business relationship. I mean, he's not going to pay her behind the back of the school committee to provide services to Stoughton. So that doesn't really make sense as a concern. But again, on the whole, I would think it'd be better to share that information with the school committee ahead of time.
Erdem?
She mentioned showing it to legal counsel. It was news to the legal counsel too. So it hasn't been shown to the legal counsel. The benefits have been increased greatly. The notice requirement for non-renewal of contract has been extended from 120 days to 365 days. The word consulting has been added. Professional expenses, there is no limitation on the taking graduate courses. Mr. Ford is now allowed to accumulate up to, well, it used to be up to 240 days sick leaves. Now it removes the maximum number of sick leaves. And this is an interesting one. Both the original new contract entitled Mr. Ford to have 5 personal days off. The new contract requires unused personal days to be converted to 6 days at the end of the fiscal year. So
Okay.
again, this is a policy and the budget question for the town. It should have been.
We're going to move on, and we're going to have, again, the candidates ask each other questions so that Jeff can take a minute off, get his breath. And Molly, you're first asking a question to Erdem.
Yes, I do. Thank you. I've heard a lot of, the culture of complacency remark and quoting low SAT scores. I've heard a lot of negativity from Dr. Ural in the course of this campaign. And my question for him is, if you are so dissatisfied with the school's accomplishments while you've been on the board, what specific directives for academic achievement have you given to Dr. Rizzi in the 6 years you've been on the board that she's failed to carry out?
Well, the school committee does not give academic achievement directives. The school committee would like to see an improvement in the ranking of the schools. For example, our DAS school used to be 55 percentile. Now, in 2014, it dropped to 44 percentile. Our West school, I see the selectmen candidates are in, still at bottom 26% of all elementary schools in Massachusetts, and I have been asking maybe to break these population, but the superintendent and assistant superintendent thinks that they may be lowering the scores to 2 different schools because the teachers and the professionals in West School are totally overwhelmed with the amount of work they have.
I don't know how to comment on that. I don't know what you mean by overwhelmed by the amount of work. If you're suggesting there should be additional supported positions, I find that interesting because you voted down the 3 new Unit B professional positions, which perhaps could have helped to give some relief to teachers at the West School.
Well, this shows that you don't really understand what the Unit B person does. Unit B person is an assistant principal. We need more teachers, more specialists in West School.
Okay. Erdem, it's your chance to ask Molly a
okay.
question now.
You mentioned that the town meeting approved the Unit B positions, and then school committee was wrong to not defund those positions. between then and now, and I challenge you, between then and now, did you check the law regarding this allegation? Or do you still assert your claim?
I believe I was asked generally about that issue during the town hall debate a few days ago. I was asked how I felt about positions that had been funded by town meeting, and I believe that the question was directed to these controversial Unit B positions, which the board has voted for and against, or actually voted against and then voted to support. My understanding is that the process went through town meeting, the town meeting approved them, and I'm not trying to actually make any legal assertion as to what was done legally or not. I'm saying factually that my opponent opposed those positions, even when the board reversed itself and said, yes, we want to fill these positions. They're still not filled to this day. I understand that the SDA has wanted to do impact bargaining on this, but my sense is that it's gotten bogged down and they should be filled, and the chair should be moving this forward as quickly as possible so they can be filled by next fall.
Ms. Cochran, the chair is not holding up the positions. Again, you're giving the false impression. The law is Mass General Laws, Chapter 71, Section 34. That's a very important law for the school budget and the school department, which says, in acting on appropriations for educational costs, the city or town appropriating body shall vote on the total amount of the appropriations requested and shall not allocate appropriations among accounts or place any restrictions on such appropriations. Then continues. The vote of the legislative body of a city or town shall establish the total appropriation for the support of public schools, but may not limit the authority of the school committee to determine expenditures within the total appropriation. So that's Chapter 71, Section 34.
I agree, and I am familiar with the statute. That refreshes my recollection that that's the rule, and that rule makes sense, but I don't think it answers the question of why those positions have not been filled today.
I have nothing to do with it. The school committee voted, and there is a request from the STA, and as far as the school committee is concerned, it's beyond the school committee. So STA is negotiating with the school committee and the superintendent, and that's why they are not filled.
Okay, one last question from Jeff, and this one will go to Erdem.
It's been a contentious debate season, as it oftentimes is, and this likely is the last time that you're going to be appearing together in a public forum before the
never know, Jeff.
Tuesday, April 7th, well, a debate before the Tuesday, April 7th election. So can you say something nice about each other, something positive that you have picked up? I know there's a lot of disagreements, but something positive about your opponent before we head into closing remarks.
Is it me first?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I know Molly's husband, Larry, who I met him in the town meeting, and he's a really nice guy. I think he's a keeper. And I also met Molly's children. They are also lovely. They look lovely children, so I'm very pleased to see them.
Anything nice about Molly?
Huh?
About Molly?
Now you're pushing the envelope.
I thought Molly was nice. When I met her, she came to school committee for an interview for Tony Bickerton's seats. And I thought she was really nice. But in this campaign, I'm so surprised. Attack, attack, attack. She's advocating one thing, but setting an example of herself on the other direction.
I'm going to have to steer you away and have it go right
All
to
right.
Molly, because we're
I'll
trying to
say
say
something
nice
very
things.
quickly, something nice about Dr. Earl. I did vote for him many, many years ago when he first ran, because I thought it was nice to have somebody who had a higher education background on the committee. And I will say there are moments when I watch the school committee meetings, especially when there's involving an outside person who's testifying, when Dr. Earl and the other members have some very pleasant moments of respectful interchange with the person who's testifying or bringing an issue before. And I feel like that's the good side of Dr. Earl. And then it's interesting, though, you can't make it through an entire meeting without something coming up where things get very, very uncomfortable and I think very unprofessional. But
Okay.
I would hope that you could focus on the good.
It's now time, we have to do this quickly too. You're wrapping up first, Molly.
Thank you.
60 seconds.
My wrap-up is why bother to vote, and please, everybody bother to vote, and please vote for me. I think a vote for me is about investing in the future of our children and putting our best foot forward as a town. It's about bringing a thoughtful, reasoned, and very positive approach to the school committee. It's a vote for professionalism and civility and decorum in the meetings and interactions. It's about working with and not against the administration. It's about respecting and supporting our hardworking teachers. It's about cultivating trusting relationships rather than alienating and belittling people. It's also about understanding the proper oversight role of the school committee. I have no desire to take over the system and to elbow the professionals out of the way and to question their math. I'm not seeking power, really. I'm just seeking to make a positive contribution. It's about continuing to make sure we're doing everything we can to improve student achievement and well-being. I actually have no agenda other than what leads to the best interest of the children in this community. I'm not in the union camp. I'm not in the administration camp. I'm in the students' camp. Thank you very much.
Erdem?
Again, don't be fooled with the rainbow and lollipops logic. We are doing well, but we can and we must do much better. For example, Department of Education ranked our high school at the bottom 45 percentile of the all schools in Massachusetts in 2014. Our SAT scores are 976 out of 1600. We can and we must do much better. We owe it to our children to give them the best education, to help build their futures and the ability to go to a good college. Please vote for me because I'm an experienced school committee member with a proven track record over 6 years. Please vote for me because I am an experienced educator and an entrepreneur. Please vote for me because I am committed to improving the quality of education in Stoughton schools rather than preserving the status quo. And please vote for me because I will continue to demand transparency, continue to hold the administration accountable.
Thank you both for coming.
Thank
Really
you for
appreciate
having
it.
us, Mark.
Thank you all
very
for
much.
watching.
Thank you.
Thank Jeff for asking the questions. It's really been a thrill for me to actually come back on SMAC. It's kind of a, wow.
Maybe you'll
Unbelievable.
continue coming back.
I want to say thanks very much to Michael Hammond, Dave Young, Christine Iacobucci, who did the timing for us, Jordan Elkerry, Tyler Miles, Justin Nguyen, and of course Jeff for inviting us back here. It's my thrill to be here. And I just want to make sure that we all get it to you, folks, to think about this very carefully. Vote on April 7th. If you don't vote, you lose, okay? And also, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So I don't want to hear anybody complain that doesn't vote. We can check, by the way, to see if you voted, too. So, vote. Vote for the candidate of your choice, but vote. Thank you very much for both coming in, and thank you for serving, too.
Thank you.
And your community. That's a great thing to do. We'll see everybody. Thanks again for tuning in. And while I have 1 second, I guess I have a couple seconds left here. This will be replayed on March 27th at 7 o'clock at night. It'll be replayed on Sunday, March 29th at 10 p.m., March 31st at noon, and Wednesday, April 1st at 10 a.m. So if you wanted to watch again, even if you watched it and you want to watch it again and again and again and take a quiz on it, do it. See you, everybody. Bye-bye.